Wow, please inject this into my veins. Now, Suella Braverman used to be, quite absurdly, the Home Secretary of Britain, charged with national security, law and order, that kind of thing. She's a pantomime villain of a right-winger and a hardcore apologist for the Israeli state and its current genocidal onslaught against the Palestinian people. Now, she's teamed up with GB News, the Fox News of Britain, which has made a total mockery of Britain's broadcasting rules to churn out relentless right-wing propaganda. GB News is essentially a right-wing political project, more than, say, a news channel, despite the claims made before it was launched, which those of us who disbelieve, by the way, were completely vindicated over. Now, GB News took Suella Braverman to the encampment at Cambridge University, set up by students there to oppose Israel's genocidal campaign. The motive here was very straightforward: to use these students as culture war fodder. The hope was that there would be a confrontation, which would be fireworks and rile up the GB News audience. You know, students angrily denouncing Braverman, big shouting match, hopefully some abusive things being said about our former Home Secretary, while Braverman stands back looking all smug. Job done. Well, here's what happened.
Now, quite often you'll see that they don't seem particularly intent on showing their faces. I don't know if you might be able to engage with people. Hello, just wondering if you'd like to have any kind of discussion at all with Suella today?
Hi, I'm Suella. I'm keen to find out your views and what you're protesting about.
Nothing at all? No?
Interested in why you're covering your faces. Is it a COVID or a health measure? No comment.
No? Can I just ask, are you students at the university or just from around the area? Nothing? No? No, fine. Okay, interesting. Yeah. And what were you expecting? You know, did you think that maybe people might engage a little bit with you? They feel very strongly
about it. These are supposed to be some of the brightest and the best students in the land, and taught in the art of articulating their views and expressing arguments in a coherent way. And I'm interested in hearing their arguments.
Yeah? Anyone?
Engaging and listening.
What would be your main question to some of the individuals?
I'm really keen to hear what your message is to Israel.
No. Nothing.
Interested to hear your message to Hamas.
No comment. Okay.
Do you think the hostages should be released now?
Not really.
No.
Is there? No, hey, we keep walking.
Not very.
Don't know if you would like to have a quick chat with us, sir, at all today?
Hi there.
Go on.
Very nice. I'm Suella. Can I ask you what your message is to Israel?
Yep.
Right. Can I ask you what your message is to Hamas? Silence.
Guys, anyone willing to just explain a couple of bits and bobs? What you guys are doing here, why it's so important to you, what the demands are, anything? No?
Vegan and nut fruit needed. Vegan and nut-free food.
Oh, that's what it says.
Is needed.
Right, well, there we go.
Morning, everybody. Hi, I'm Suella Braverman, MP. Here to inquire about what you're protesting about and give you an opportunity to send your message onto national television.
No? Okay, all right. Well, it's fascinating, really, because I thought that maybe they would give some form of response or reaction. But
yeah, I thought they'd have a line.
Sorry, but that is funny. You've got to admit, that's funny. That's comical. It's embarrassing. Hugely embarrassing for GB News and Suella Braverman. What makes it perfect is we took that from the GB News Twitter feed because they just posted it, probably thinking, yep, that's a win. Come on, guys. We got some juicy content. Being completely and utterly ignored, blanked by the students we were trying to ridicule and humiliate and serve up for the culture war. Absolutely amazing, incredible stuff. No, genuinely though, well done to those students who had the correct strategy there, of course, with GB News and Suella Braverman, who were trying to use them. That it wasn't the whole point of this exercise, wasn't some engaging back and forth in good faith and interesting debate to tease out differences of opinion. It's really tedious that they try and pretend it was, because they know that's not what they were trying to do. And actually, their audience know that's not what they were trying to do. Their critics know it's not what they were trying to do. Like, nobody believes it. Everybody knows they were trying to set up what they thought would be a useful confrontation for them, which would serve their political purposes of demonising protesters. That's what the whole point of the exercise was. And they know it. It's just a waste of time, insulting everyone's intelligence to pretend otherwise. They were trying to use students as a prop in the culture war. It's kind of grim, isn't it? They're trying to go up to all these students. And Suella Braverman asked, oh, why are you covering your face? Wow, why would they want to do that? What? Just because a right-wing cultural channel is sticking cameras in their faces, which will then reveal all their identities, so a load of right-wing lunatics can go and dox a load of 19-year-olds, go through their entire history and try and serve up their histories all over the internet to try and demonise and attack them further. Why would they need to cover their faces up? It really is a mystery, isn't it? Suella Braverman. Now, clearly what they were trying to do, this noxious channel and Suella Braverman, was to demonise those who committed the despicable crime of opposing one of the great atrocities of our age, as thousands of civilians are slaughtered, of course, with the support of the British government. I bet they were gutted. They were gutted by that response. And so, after being subjected to the silent treatment, one of the protesters did go to GB News studio. Let's listen to that clip.
One of my first questions that I was very keen to ask, I mean, were you at the encampment?
The Cambridge one, but other ones.
Other ones, OK. And can I ask you what your view is of the events of October the 7th? What do you think happened on October the 7th in Israel?
Well, obviously the camps haven't started because of October the 7th specifically. Right. They're starting, I mean, this week in loads of encampments up and down the country. They've been, like, celebrating and having to, like, memorise the fact that this week commemorates the Nakba, which took place 76 years ago, which means catastrophe, which is a massive symbol of what Israel has been doing for the last 76 years. This isn't about October the 7th. And to start with that is just entirely disingenuous, I think, on your part. I really want to say that I think it's great, actually, that you went to that camp today and tried to talk to those students. And you kind of embarrassed yourself, I would say, whilst doing that, because it was a reminder for me, and I'm sure for other people watching, that actually the Palestine movement brought you down, and the Palestine movement has the potential to bring down lots of other Tory ministers and the whole Tory government, and not just the Tory government, I would say any government and any mainstream political party that is backing what Israel is doing right now, which is a genocide, and that's what people want to protest.
Do you want to come back to that?
Bringing down the government.
So what the student does here, very ably, I would say, is reframe the discussion. What Suella Braverman wants to do is start the clock on the 7th of October and just erase history. To pretend Israel was just minding its own business, being all peaceful, not bothering anyone, just being all cheerful and democratic. And then out of nowhere, a terrible atrocity took place and Israel just had to go and defend itself. And that's the entire history of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Whereas, as this student points out, this goes back generations, not least, of course, back to the Nakba, the catastrophe of 1948, within living memory, that is, when 750,000 Palestinians were driven from their homes, in more modern parlance, ethnically cleansed, 15,000 of them slaughtered in the process. Now, it should be noted that the vast majority of Gaza's population today are the family members of those driven from their homes in 1948, well over 80%. Then, of course, we have further ethnic cleansing, including another mass violent expulsion in 1967. We have the longest belligerent occupation in modern times, apartheid as defined by international and Israeli human rights organisations, the theft of Palestinian land and its colonisation by illegal settlements, mass incarcerations with huge numbers, including children, incarcerated without trial and tortured and abused, relentless mass murder. In the West Bank alone last year, 240 Palestinians were killed before the 7th of October, around 40 of them children. Well, I doubt, to be honest, Suella Braverman even knows or cares about most of that history. She looked flabbergasted when confronted with some actual context. And that's aside from the atrocities committed by the Israeli state in Gaza. Right now, as I speak and you listen, far graver than the crimes which were committed on 7th of October, which I've always been very clear about. Braverman is, alas, a one-dimensional caricature of a right-wing demagogue who seems to just go through right-wing talking points like a checklist, with no substance to anything she says or argues for or against, quite unlike the students she was trying to demonise. Now, it's striking that Braverman was sacked by the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, as Home Secretary, after she accused the Metropolitan Police, London's police force, of bias in the policing of protests. An absolute absurdity, of course. What really angered her was that protests against Israel's genocide are overwhelmingly peaceful, with fewer arrests than at Glastonbury Music Festival, and therefore there was no legal basis for the Met to wage the sort of war against protests against Israel's genocide, which the likes of Suella Braverman obviously crave. The idea that the Metropolitan Police is some den of leftiness which loves protesters, yeah, well, come off it now. I mean, she went on to write a completely unhinged article for The Telegraph claiming that Islamists are in charge of Britain now. Basically, she claims there's some Islamist cabal running the show. That's really why the Met isn't just going around locking up anybody who objects to a genocide. I mean, it's just a disturbing conspiracy theory dripping with Islamophobia. The truth is, the protesters who gave Braverman the silent treatment have been vindicated, like protesters from Iraq to Vietnam, who were similarly sneered at and insulted by politicians and media elites. The tragedy, of course, is those responsible were never held to account in those crimes. That's what has to change. Please like and subscribe. Do leave your comments and thoughts. Do share the video. Help us take on the pro-war media at patreon.com/Jose84. Speak to you soon.